Every person in this life falls, sometimes because of disappointment, sometimes because of an unexpected failure, and other times because the heart simply cannot bear what's inside it. Yet what's truly remarkable is how some people rise again in a completely different way. They stand up with something profoundly transformed within them, as if they've touched the essence of being human for the first time. Author Brené Brown says that life isn't about staying at the top. It's about having the courage to come down when fate demands it, and the inner power found in choosing to rise each time we fall. Falling is not a flaw. It's the strongest sign that we tried, that we dared, that we actually lived. Those who never fall never try, and those who never try never change. This is why Brené says, "The courage to try is more important than the outcome of the attempt." The journey described in this book isn't about success or failure. It's about what happens in between, about that moment when you find yourself stuck in the middle, suspended between pain and hope, between what you wanted and what actually happened. It's a journey that begins with a fall, but doesn't end until you rise again, carrying the light of understanding rather than the darkness of disappointment. In the first stage of falling, everything hurts. Betrayal, loss, frustration. That moment when you collapse suddenly and discover that the ground is much closer than you ever imagined. The author describes it honestly as the moment of shock, the still, confusing silence when words stop and the heart begins to scream. We always try to appear strong, but falling strips away our masks. It returns us to our original truth, humans who make mistakes, who weaken, who grieve. A fall might come from losing someone we love, failing at work, or watching a dream slip away. But no matter the cause, the feeling is the same, a deep fracture inside. In that moment, a person confronts their greatest fears with startling clarity. The fear of being alone, the fear of never rising again, the fear of being seen in vulnerability. But Brené reminds us that falling is not the end of the story. It's the page where a new chapter begins. Those who fall come to know themselves more deeply than at any other time, because when you break, you finally see what you had been hiding from yourself.
People, work, relationships, dreams, all of them reveal their true nature when you fall. And in that moment, real courage appears. Courage is the willingness to stay with the pain a little longer, not to run, not to paint over disappointment with pretty words, but to see it exactly as it is and carry it exactly as it comes. In our culture, we often fear weakness. We see it as shameful or as a sign of weak faith. But the truth is that vulnerability is a noble human moment. It is the honest admission that we are human and that we do not control everything. When you fall, don't rush to stand up. Sit with your pain. Listen to what your inner voice is trying to say. Perhaps the fall is a pathway to deeper understanding. In the Quran and in sacred stories, every fall is followed by a rise. Adam erred, yet he repented and was elevated. Joseph was cast into a well, yet became honored. Moses fled in fear, yet returned as a prophet. A fall is not the end of the journey. It is the doorway to transformation. The stage of facing pain. After you fall, the hardest part begins, not rising, but confronting the pain itself. The author calls this the moment of truth, when you can no longer hide, when you are forced to face your emotions directly. At first, we try to escape. We drown ourselves in work, in friends, in distractions. We convince ourselves that we are fine. But pain doesn't vanish. It waits in silence until we are brave enough to look it in the eyes. Pain wants to be acknowledged. It wants you to say, "Yes, I am hurting." Only then does it begin to transform. Brené Brown explains that people who ignore their emotions end up living in a cycle that never ends. The same pain returns again and again in different shapes until they finally learn to face it honestly. Facing pain doesn't mean drowning in it. It means understanding it. It means asking, "What are you trying to teach me?" Every experience carries a message. Every hurt hides a lesson. But we only hear it when we sit still and when we endure. In painful moments, we must treat ourselves as we would treat a beloved friend, gently, kindly. We must embrace our vulnerability and whisper to ourselves, "It's okay. I will get through this too." The author reminds us that the strongest people are not those who feel no pain, but those who allow it to move through them without letting it destroy them. And this is the heart of it. True courage is not strength. It is allowing yourself to feel. When you face pain instead of running from it, you stop being a victim and become a conscious human being. You begin to see what lies behind the pain, and you emerge stronger, wiser, and with a clearer heart. The stage of understanding. When the storm calms slightly and the emotional chaos begins to settle, a new stage starts. A stage no less painful than the fall, but full of light. This is the stage of understanding, when you begin to ask questions, when you look at what happened not with fear, but with curiosity and willingness to learn. Brené Brown says, "The truth doesn't hurt us as much as denying it." And she's right, because we are only freed when we face the truth directly. In this stage, you stop blaming others. You stop justifying what happened. You begin asking yourself, what was my role? What was I meant to learn? What responsibility did I avoid?
True understanding is not self-punishment. It is honest self-awareness. It is realizing that painful experiences are not random. Sometimes they are the only way to learn what we refuse to understand. Maybe you once believed you couldn't live without someone until they left and you discovered you were far stronger than you ever imagined. Maybe you lost a job you clung to, only to realize you had been trapping yourself in a place unworthy of your spirit. Every situation carries a message. Every loss hides a gift within it. Understanding means recognizing that gift. It means acknowledging that pain didn't come to punish you, but to rearrange your life into something better. In the Quran, God says, "You may dislike something while it is good for you." This is the wisdom the author speaks about in human terms, that what we see as loss may actually be the beginning of something far greater. When understanding arrives, everything shifts. You begin to see your life from a wider angle. You discover you were never the victim. You were the student, and life, though harsh, taught you lessons that cannot be bought. Understanding doesn't come all at once. It arrives in small doses. Each time you forgive, you understand more. Each time you stop blaming, the picture becomes clearer. It is the dawn that follows the longest night of your life. Understanding doesn't change what happened, it changes you, and that is greater than any victory. The stage of rising. After understanding comes the moment when you stand again, but this time you are not the same person who fell. You have changed, become more aware, softer, more honest with yourself. Rising is not a rush upward, it is a conscious return. You rise knowing what hurt you and also knowing what healed you. Brené Brown says, Who rises after the fall never returns as who they were, because true rising gives birth to someone new. In this stage, you begin rebuilding yourself. You set new boundaries. You choose people more carefully. You learn to say no when it must be said. You no longer seek perfection. You seek truth. You no longer chase everyone's approval. You seek the approval of your soul and your Creator. Rising doesn't mean you forgot the pain. It means you are no longer its prisoner. Many believe strength lies in forgetting, but real strength lies in remembering without hurting, in telling your story with peace, not tears. In this stage, you realize that experiences are never erased. They transform into wisdom that guides you. The author says, "Courage is not staying on the ground when you fall. It is placing your hand on your heart and saying, 'I am still here.'" When you rise, you feel reborn, as if you stepped from darkness into light, seeing life for the first time with clearer eyes. It feels almost like repentance, a return to yourself.
It is a kind of repentance, a repentance from being blind to yourself, from neglect, from hardness of heart, a turning back toward awareness, toward compassion. Rising doesn't mean you have arrived. It means you have begun again, on a deeper level of maturity. And each time you fall in the future, you will remember this experience and smile with quiet confidence, because now you know you can always rise again. The stage of transformation. This is the essence, the moment when wounds turn into fingerprints of light. Transformation is not about moving past what happened. It is about allowing it to shape you from within without letting it break you. As Brené Brown explains, life does not change us when we resist, but when we allow ourselves to be affected. Transformation doesn't happen through the mind alone. The heart must participate too. When you understand, when you forgive, when you let go of what is not meant for you, painful experiences become opportunities for growth. Perhaps you would have never understood yourself without that particular wound. Perhaps you would have never known your worth without those who diminished it. Perhaps you would have never drawn closer to God without that moment of weakness. Transformation means the pain no longer owns you. It becomes a part of your story, but not the ending of it. You begin using what you've learned to help others. You become more humble, more compassionate, more human. And in that very point, you realize that the fall was not a loss. It was preparation for a truer version of yourself. The stage of inner peace. When you reach this stage, you understand that everything that happened was guiding you toward peace, a peace that doesn't come from external victories, but from deep inner reconciliation. Brené Brown says, "Peace does not mean the pain is gone. It means you now know how to live with it." A person who rises after falling no longer seeks perfection. They seek meaning, balance, truth. They become gentler with themselves and kinder with others. They blame less, justify less, and no longer fear being authentic. Peace is not erasing the past, but placing it where it belongs, to say, yes, this happened, but it no longer defines me. When inner peace settles in, you learn to choose your battles wisely. You walk away from what drains you. You say no to what harms you, and yes to what nourishes your soul. You stop trying to prove yourself because you already know your worth. You no longer fear falling because you've tasted it and risen stronger.
In Islam, this is the meaning of tranquility, the stillness of the soul despite storms, the certainty that what is written for you will never miss you, and what misses you was never meant for you. Peace is not withdrawing from life, but being fully present within it, without losing your balance. When you look back, you see every painful moment as it truly was, a stone in the building of your new self. The conclusion. In the final message of the book, Brené Brown says, "Rising after a fall is not a sudden triumph. It is a slow, sometimes painful process, but it is always worth it." And this is the truth. Every moment of weakness in your life is an invitation from God to become stronger. Every moment of pain is a hidden message reminding you that you were not created to collapse, but to rise. There will be days when you won't want to wake up, moments when you feel everything is lost. But always remember, darkness does not mean the light is gone. It means the light is preparing to return. Each time you rise, something invisible within you changes. You become deeper in understanding, truer in love, closer to your essence. Rising doesn't make you extraordinary. It makes you genuinely human, aware that pain is part of life, and that real beauty is born only after a sincere wound. You may never forget what happened, but you will learn to look at it with gratitude, because it shaped you and made you who you are today. And at the end of the journey, you finally understand.
True strength isn't about never falling. It's about falling and then rising again with a heart free of bitterness. A person who learns the art of rising is never the same again. They become a light for others, reaching out with warmth and certainty to anyone who has fallen, saying, "I've been there, and you will rise too." All you need is patience, patience to learn, patience to heal, patience with yourself. Everything in life is temporary, and every fall, no matter how painful, will one day become a chapter in a more beautiful story of rising. Always remember, as Brené Brown says, the story you have the courage to tell is the story that will no longer have power over you. So tell your story. Do not fear your scars. They are the marks that say you fought, you learned, and you rose again. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to the channel to join us on every new journey through the world of books, a world that believes real change begins with a thought, and with a book that walks beside you along the way.